Will Alvin Kamara go as high as he did last night? Is Todd Gurley going to slip as much as he did on Sunday? And how will the pros be able to deal with 3 former national championship Joes? Follow along with the live draft board tonight and listen to our analysis as we call the action from the 2020 FFPC Pros vs. Joes Slim Jim League number 2 to see who will win a 2021 FFPC main event team. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Let's begin now.
New cologne on. Feeling so good. Change the color to my phone. Orange Kool-Aid go good with Patron. No, hell no. It's still my ringtone. Free car wash. Had to clean up the Dodge. Give back when I can. Just playing my part. Church folks had a fish fry. Mustard. Hot sauce. Light bread. French fries. Love for the big guy. Hit the park. Blowing, showing off their house. Nappy roof on the radio. And you know it rock. Last night they hit the big 3. Bought some Air Force One. 4 call teams. Man, I'm loving BG.
Broadcast live and heard around the world. You are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Cause I'm still above ground, that's the reason I pray. Got my car cleaned up, now I'm ready to play. Make a call to the stick, say I'm headed that way. Heard my cousin cooking out, I gotta get me a plate.
Hey, thanks so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all the Balkaholics and Gerzakin addicts tuning in tonight. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, as always, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Tonight we have the second of 6 special episodes for you this year. It's the Pros vs. Joes FFPC Slim Jim League number 2 draft tonight. We'll be covering it for the next 90-ish minutes. Follow the live draft board at youtube.com/highstakesfantasyfootball. And a shout out to the chat room right now. If you want to connect with us on Twitter at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak is where to reach us. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where to chime in and connect with us there. Or if you want to give the program a call tonight, 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OBA. My best friend and audio engineer Bryce, my mutual friend, or I should say our mutual friend, and producer Rob will be answering all the emails at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions, tweets, or emails, send them now, and we'll try to get to them throughout the program. As a reminder, tonight is the deadline day for the 2020 main event early draft slot. To get that those early draft slots on August 2nd, make sure you are paid in full for your FFPC main event teams. And remember, each additional team, you'll get $400 off. Square those balances away tonight, myffpc.com. You have until midnight Pacific time, so about 6 more hours, and then she gone. All right, let's get into tonight's lineup. I'm very excited to bring you this draft tonight because we have a great mix of pros and Joes tonight, and they're almost through the first round. Here is who is drafting tonight. 2016 FFPC main event champion David Hubbard drafting first tonight from Fantasy Pros. Right behind him, that's Mike Tagliere. Jason Averly, a 3-time main event and high-stakes auction champ, is drafting third tonight. Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell from RotoViz and Dynasty League Football, runner-ups in their Pros versus Joes leagues the last 2 years. They're going to try to break that trend tonight as they are drafting fourth. An FFPC rookie this year, Theo Greminger, is drafting fifth. The Athletics' Jake Seeley will be selecting sixth tonight. The 2018 Football Guys Players Championship overall winner Ross Lively in the 7th spot tonight. WGR Buffalo Radio's Mike Shope will be picking 8th, followed by Chris Birchby, a 26-time FFPC high-stakes league winner in the 9th spot. Sports Grid's Davis Maddock is in the 10 slot tonight. The 2015 FFPC main event champ Gary Allen in the 11th, and then Elliot Chris from Fade the Noise picking up the slack in the 12th spot tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring you through the first round. First of all, a welcome to my co-host before I turn it over to my dulcet tones, or turn it back over to my dulcet tones. Dave Gerzak, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Balky?
Doing a lot better than I thought I would be. You know, these slim drafts, this is a departure from what we've done in Pros vs. Joes the last couple of years. Normally we do a 28-round best ball draft. These are slims, 18 rounds, no kickers, no defenses, and as Fantasy Mojo Darren Armani says, no excuses. So this draft will fly by tonight. I expect it to be done in a little over an hour. Without further ado, we'll get into the first round. David Hubbard takes Christian McCaffrey, followed by Ezekiel Elliott to Mike Tagliere. Dave, 2 nights in a row, we do not have Saquon Barkley in the 2 spot, and that's where FFPC drafters have been selecting him.
That's interesting. It's really something else.
Yeah, this is crazy. So Barkley falls to the 3rd spot again tonight. Jason Aberle gets him there. Alvin Kamara to Patrick and McDowell in the cleanup spot, followed by Dalvin Cook to Theo Greminger. So 5 straight running backs to start off. It won't be 6 as Jake Seeley takes Michael Thomas. Derrick Henry to Ross Lively after that, and then Devontae Adams, the 2nd receiver off the board, and the 2nd receiver in the 1st round, drafted by Mike Shope there from WGR Buffalo Radio. Travis Kelce is the first tight end to Chris Birchby tonight. Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, and Joe Mixon wrap up the 1st round. Sanders to Maddox, Drake to Allen, Mixon to Chris. There's not much to say about the 1st round tonight, so I just want to get your thoughts sort of on the field tonight, Dave. Have we ever had 3 6-figure overall champions ever in one Pros vs. Joe's before? We have the 2015 and 16 main event champs in Hubbard and Allen in here, plus the 2018 Football Guys champ in Ross Lively. This is insane.
That's a lot of dough.
It's a lot of dough, and they're going up against some pretty stiff pros here tonight. I think, and, I'm hyperbolic as all get out, but I'll tell you this. This might be the most loaded Pros vs. Joe's draft we've ever had before.
You're throwing out pretty big words there, but, it's impressive. Everyone's really good. Everyone's a really good player.
Have we had a conversation about who you prefer in the 1st round between Miles Sanders and Kenyon Drake yet? Because I think that
I prefer Sanders myself.
You do? Okay. Now, despite the whole...
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, just because you brought this up, and I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, the timeshare that they've traditionally run a timeshare.
Right, yeah.
I think, Sanders is really – I'm coming around on him more because he just does look like a really high-quality athlete. He was behind Barkley. I feel like they're going to have to give him touches, and have to give him carries. Boston Scott's pretty solid, actually, but he doesn't really compare. Drake, to me, he doesn't have quite enough of a track record as a feature back. I mean, not that Sanders doesn't necessarily either, but I do like the pedigree of Sanders over Drake. Drake, I think, was like the 2nd round or third round.
He was a 2nd round pick, yeah.
Yeah, and he took a while to get established, so I'm going to go with Sanders.
All right, so let's move into the 2nd round here, and Elliot Chris kicks it off with Tyreek Hill at the 201, followed by Gary Allen taking Chris Godwin, the first Buccaneers receiver off the board, to the 2015 main event champ there. Is Godwin. The 2nd tight end off the board, Davis Maddox takes him, and George Kittle at the 203. Josh Jacobs to Chris Birchby right after that to go with Kelce. Julio Jones, as Mike Shope starts off receiver. He is the only team to do so in this draft tonight. DeAndre Hopkins off the board to Ross Lively after that. Dave, are you on board with DeAndre Hopkins going after Jones, Godwin, and Hill? I mean, we haven't seen really Hopkins slip this much before. As far as FFPC drafters go, over the last week in FFPC Best Ball Slims, DeAndre Hopkins is actually going off the board on average at the 206 as wide receiver 4.
Yeah, I can see the argument. I mean, Julio's, he actually was scoring touchdowns last year, and that was always what was missing in his game. Godwin's going to get, blanketed with targets. So I really, I am a big believer in Godwin over Evans on that team. And Tyreek is just, he's talking 2,000 receiving yards. So I could see Tyreek over, even over Devontae Adams easily, actually. What's
funny about that is I had that in the Scott Fish Bowl earlier this summer. I decided I was going to take a receiver with my 2nd pick, and Thomas is off the board, and I actually went with Hill over Adams there.
There you go.
And I think it's a little bit different. But maybe not so much. I like both of them this year quite a bit. All right, moving on. Nick Chubb falls about a half round later, a little bit less than a half round later, as where he went last night. The Athletics' Jake Seeley takes him at the 207, followed by Austin Eckler to Theo Greminger. Mark Andrews, the 3rd tight end off the board tonight, at the 209 to Patrick and McDowell. Aaron Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running backs off the board after that to Aberle and Tagliere. And then completing the 2nd round is the 2nd Buccaneers receiver of the 2nd round. David Hubbard takes Mike Evans there at the 212. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Dave, at the 211 tonight to Mike Tagliere. Normally goes at the 211. This is where FFPC drafters are taking him as the running back 14 in this format. You on board with that? I don't know if I am.
I personally am not. I think it's too big of a risk to take a rookie back that's going to have limited training camp that early.
All right, so in Tagliere's defense here, and I don't know if we talked about this last night, but the winner of each of these leagues will get a 2021 FFPC main event entry for free. It's roughly about a $2,000 value. Second place gets you absolutely bupkis. So maybe there is something to swing for the fences, to go for the home runs instead of the doubles, instead of the singles here. And Edwards-Helaire could be a potential league winner, and especially when you have Tagliere pairing him with Ezekiel Elliott. If Edwards-Helaire hits, I mean, again, maybe not, but you could be looking at 2 top 5 running backs there.
Yeah, it's possible. Andy Reid, though, he always goes with, traditionally has gone with one back. The back generally has to be a really good pass blocker. And it took him a while to even bring along, some of his other, top guys like Shady McCoy when he was with the Eagles. He didn't start him right away. He eventually got there, but it wasn't right away.
Right, that's true.
So.
Ryan Poole checking in the chat room tonight, Dave. You remember he drafted with Lou Tranquilli at the 12 spot last night in Pros vs. Joe's #1 Slim Shady League. He says picking first is brutal this year because there's just not much value at the 2-3 turn. And while that might be true, I will happily make my peace with not a lot of value at the 2-3 turn if I can get Christian McCaffrey at the 101. Yeah. That's my feeling on it.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 1 pick.
That covers up a lot of warts. And we'll see how these 101 teams turn out this year with the McCaffrey. It's interesting
what the 2 #1 picks did in each of these 2 drafts as they're about to hit the 3rd round is they paired McCaffrey with the top quarterback.
Yeah, so last night it was McCaffrey and Jackson. Mm-hmm. Tonight, David Hubbard pairs Christian McCaffrey after he takes Mike Evans in the 2nd. Takes Patrick Mahomes as the first quarterback off the board at the 301. We've had this discussion with a few high-stakes owners over the last few months, and I think for the most part, it's been Lamar Jackson as people like like him as their favorite quarterback this year. Jimmy Wagner, I know, called in last night, and we were talking with him. He was drafting in the 2nd spot. He actually likes Mahomes over Jackson as well. Do you have a preference when it comes down? And again, I think that it's safe to say Lamar Jackson will garner a significant more amount of rushing yards this year. I don't know if that makes him more susceptible to injury. I'm not sure how you look at that. Between Mahomes and Jackson, if you made up your mind that you're going to draft one of them and you have your pick of either one, who's it going to be?
I'd roll with Lamar Jackson. I mean, the rushing yards, to me, he just has a higher floor. But, Mahomes was running the ball pretty well at the end of the in that postseason. At the Super Bowl, he had a lot of rushing yards until he, had all those step backs and won me the under on his rushing yards. But I think I'd still go with Lamar Jackson, although it's fairly close. They're both amazing.
Yeah, they are both very good. All right, so let's talk about this next pick here from Mike Tagliere. He's getting a lot of airtime here. Juju Smith-Schuster at the 302. Smith-Schuster on average going at the wide receiver 11 at the 312. You think that's an overdraft given that he could have taken Galladay, Beckham, Robinson, Moore, Cooper? Any of those guys are still out there.
Well, they say Juju's going to run in the slot again this year. He's got Big Ben back, so he's got a lot of upside. And, there's no way he was coming back to him in the 4th round. So if that's kind of where he has him ranked, he has to take him there if he's going to go wide receiver. And, he has his 2 running backs. So I can't really fault the pick. I mean, it's early compared to ADP, but it's, if that's who he likes, that's who he likes.
Yeah, you got to get your guys. I think drink, because that's the first time I've said get your guys this season, if I remember correctly.
I would say, and the thing is, all those players, I think once you get past Evans, I think all the rest of the group, the next maybe like 6 guys or 5 guys are kind of on that next tier.
Right.
So I can see them being a little bit more interchanged, although ADP won't tell you that.
The aforementioned Lamar Jackson is the 2nd quarterback selected. He goes to Jason Aberle tonight. DJ Moore for the rainbow start for Patrick and McDowell as they go running back, tight end, receiver to start. Balance, balance, balance. We heard it from Todd Burrows last night from the Run to Daylight podcast. Zach Ertz, the number 4 tight end off the board to Theo Greminger, followed by Allen Robinson to Jake Seeley. Then we see Leonard Fournette falling about another half round from where he went last night. Ross Lively gets him tonight at the 307. Le'Veon Bell and James Conner, a pair of former teammates, go back-to-back here. Real-life teammates, I should say. Le'Veon Bell to Mike Shope, and then you have James Conner to Chris Birchby as his number 2 running back. A trio of receivers ends the 3rd round here, Dave. You have Amari Cooper going to Davis Maddock, Kenny Galladay to Gary Allen, and then Odell Beckham to Elliott Christ, as both the 11 and 12 teams, Allen and Christ, get a couple of running backs to start off in the 1st round, and then they both go receiver in the next 2. We didn't see anybody go crazy tonight in the top 3 rounds and go with 2 tight ends. How do you think that's going to affect the rest of the draft? Are we going to see a more smoother, a less exciting, a more quote-unquote to form draft tonight, given that we haven't seen anybody double up at the tight end position?
Yeah, I think so. I think, everyone's playing nice, so to speak, right now.
I wonder, you say that kind of in jest, but with the loaded Joes that are in this division, with all the experience on the pros side, guys who have done this before, and Tagliere and Seeley and Davis Maddock and Elliott Chris, and all these pros, I wonder if there is something to be said about maybe not going hog wild and doing something crazy here and just kind of letting the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's interesting because I think it's to the benefit of all 12 owners for each owner not to do that. You know what I mean?
Right. Totally.
It's a little bit like the prisoner's dilemma with 12 people, where you're trying to. It's really optimal for the group that no one does that, but so I don't know. I think it's smart drafting by everybody.
Allen Robinson, Dave, normally goes at the 311 over the last week in the FFPC Best Ball Slim format, which is what we're drafting in tonight for Pros vs. Joes. Jake Seeley takes him about a half round ahead of ADP. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if you do. I think Allen Robinson is in for another great season this year.
I love Allen Robinson. I hope I think he was so heavily targeted last year. He's separates so well on his routes. He just seems like he's always open. With improved quarterback play, he could do even better than last year.
It's interesting, too, because normally he is being drafted as wide receiver 11. He goes as wide receiver 10 tonight, which is basically the same, but about a half round ahead. Maybe the receivers are getting pushed up a little bit tonight, and the running backs will fall. Time will tell on that. Moving on to the 4th round, Dave, and as Henry Muto pointed out in the chat tonight, no one likes Gurley in these. Second time he fell to the 4th round tonight. He falls to the 401.
Amazing.
And Elliott Chris gets a good deal there on Todd Gurley. He gets Mixon and Gurley in his backfield, Tyreek Hill and Odell Beckham out wide. That's not a bad way to start this.
Yeah, if Beckham can actually stay healthy, he could be in really good shape.
I like Gurley at the 401 for sure, followed by another guy, former fantasy royalty here, David Johnson at the 402 to Gary Allen. A.J. Brown is the second receiver drafted by Davis Maddock as he takes him at the 403 tonight. And then we get a pair of running backs off the board. Chris Birchby takes Melvin Gordon. That is his 3rd running back he's selected tonight. And then Chris Carson, the number 2 from Mike Shope here from WGR Buffalo Radio. He takes Chris Carson there. Cooper Kupp off the board to Ross Lively, followed by Adam Thielen, the number 3 receiver drafted by Jake Seeley. So, Dave, in a format where seemingly everybody is going running backs, tight ends, a couple of teams go quarterbacks. Out of the first 4 rounds, Seeley is the only guy to take 3 receivers. Whether this, changes the way that people are going to be drafting receivers in the next couple of rounds, I'm not sure, but I'll be very interested to see how Seeley's team turns out, given he only has the 1 running back and the 3 wideouts so far. Potential league winner, Jonathan Taylor, the 3rd running back drafted by Theo Greminger, as he he adds Jonathan Taylor to his running back core with Dalvin Cook and Austin Eckler there. A trio of receivers then next. Calvin Ridley to Patrick and McDowell. DK Metcalf, the number 1 receiver for Jason Aberle. And then you have Tyler Lockett, Dave, at the 411 to Mike Tagliere, folled by Raheem Mostert, the freshly re-signed Raheem Mostert.
I didn't hear that news. Tell me.
No, they updated.
Gave him an extra $500,000.
No,
shut up.
Yes, it was. I don't know if it was a $500,000. But I know they didn't add any years on to his contract. I think it was purely a financial thing. I'm trying to find it right now. But I do. I
can do my own homework, and find it myself.
Okay, if you want to do that, then that's good, because I do want to talk about, again, Mike Tagliere, his pick here at the 411 tonight. Now he takes Tyler Lockett 1 pick after DK Metcalf goes, which is interesting because not only are these guys real life teammates, but Tyler Lockett, on average, is not going until the 508 at wide receiver 22. Now, I actually just listened to a podcast with Mike Tagliere, and he didn't say anything too shocking in there. But one of the things I've noticed about him over the last several years is, and I think this is a mark of a good fantasy player too, he cares not for ADP. He is going to get his guys. And if he has to draft them earlier than the hive mind is saying, so be it. If guys he doesn't like are going earlier than he's comfortable, he's not going to get them at all. But he is definitely going out and getting his guys tonight. Edwards-Helaire, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Tyler Lockett significantly at least a half round ahead of their ADP on all three of those guys tonight. He's going out and getting his guys. What do you make of the Tyler Lockett pick at 411?
He's not who I probably would have taken, but, it's fine if you like Tyler Lockett. It's interesting with Metcalf and Lockett going back-to-back, Metcalf going just ahead of him now, and I get that. I probably would have looked at Terry McLaurin, who was the next receiver drafted, actually. And there, I don't have the list of receivers in front of me. There's might have been someone else I might have taken in front of Lockett. To me, that he just doesn't command the volume that I would.
Well, especially with Metcalf now too.
Yeah. By the way, Mostert, $250,000 signing bonus, but plenty of extra incentives. He could make up to $5 million, and he was going to make $3 million. So he's going to be in the neighborhood of Tevin Coleman's salary. So I guess there won't be as much jealousy in the locker room there.
Allegedly. Thanks to Brett Tessler, had that on Twitter earlier today. I want to revisit this 49ers backfield conversation a little bit later in the draft, but I think the Mostert thing is interesting. And David Hubbard takes him there as his number 2 running back. I should point that out as well. As far as the rest of the 4th round, Dave, if I think I'm seeing this correctly, Taylor is the second rookie running back off the board. We've talked about him quite a bit. I know you like Thielen this year. A.J. Brown last night went at the 508. Tonight he goes at the 403. So you're talking about a round and a half of difference. Where would you be comfortable taking him? Is the 403 too early? I know the 508 is way too late for me, for Brown. He's such an electric talent.
Yeah, he's a talented player in a low volume passing game. So I think I'd be looking at Cooper Kupp, Thielen. I do like Ridley quite a bit this year. So those 3 players for sure I would probably take over A.J. Brown. I think maybe I would, between him and Metcalf, that's pretty close.
Yeah, it is very close. I just want to remind everybody, too, if this is the first time you're ever listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, I want to remind everybody, we do this show year-round, Friday nights at 10/9 Central, live on blogtalkradio.com. If you can't make the live broadcast to hang out in the chat room with the other High Stakes players, you can basically get it anywhere podcasts are available, except for Deezer. We're still working on that.
Deezer?
Not available on Deezer.
That company will be out of business before we get on.
I don't think so.
Who the hell is Deezer?
No, they're pretty good. They're big overseas, I can tell you that.
Oh,
HSFF Hour.
Our Japanese listeners are just waiting for Deezer.
More Europe. But yes, yeah. HSFFhour.com is where you can get us, obviously, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Alexa, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, Podchaser, Audio Burst, Breaker, CastBox, Overcast, Podbean, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Podcast Addict, and Anchor.
I thought you were just doing this to spite me at this point.
No, I'm not. I just want to let everybody know that's all available on your iPhone or your Android device as well. And I don't know if we'll hear from him tonight.
BlackBerry?
Not available on BlackBerry.
No.
We'll give a shout-out to Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com. He is the guy that designs the Pros vs. Joes every single year. He puts this all together with the Joes and the Pros. Check out his website, FantasyMojo.com. If you are in an FFPC league and you haven't subscribed to that, you need to do it right now. It is an absolute must. It is a wealth of knowledge, huge database of ADP, draft boards, and what have you at FantasyMojo.com. Check that out. Let's get to the 5th round here, Dave. Darren Waller, 5th tight end off the board here at the 501. Quite the rainbow start there for the 2016 FFPC main event champ David Hubbard, as he now has 2 running backs, but a receiver, a quarterback, and a tight end. We talk about the importance of not going early quarterback and early tight end in this, but we haven't really talked about that in the terms of an FFPC best ball slim format. Does the same still hold true in this, where you personally would probably stay away from a quarterback and a tight end early, and by early I mean within the first 5 rounds?
If I saw value, I might look at it. I'm usually, when I'm talking about that or we're talking about it, I'm thinking more like main event type stuff, where it's a managed roster and you really have to cover bye weeks and all that. Not that you don't have to cover it here, but because the lineups are optimized, it's not as big of a concern. I think trying to get the number 1 running back, the number 1 quarterback, and a top 5 tight end is it's not a bad strategy by Hubbard.
David Montgomery to Mike Tagliere right after that is his number 3 running back. 3rd running back drafted by Jason Aberle, the Godfather, takes Kareem Hunt there at the 503. You have Terry McLaurin, who you mentioned before. Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell take him. Robert Woods is the first receiver selected by Theo Greminger there. We get a triple threat of running backs after this, Dave. Mark Ingram, to Jake Seeley, Devin Singletary to Ross Lively, and then Ronald Jones, the third running back selected by Mike Shope from WGR Buffalo Radio. Keenan Allen and DJ Chark to Birchby and Maddock, respectively, followed by Evan Engram, the sixth tight end off the board at the 5'11", and then Cortland Sutton rounds out the completion of the top 60 picks in tonight's Pros versus Joe's draft here, as he is the third receiver taken by Elliot Christ. Okay, so let's break this down here a little bit, Dave. You look at this round right now, and the first guy I want to talk about is Kareem Hunt. He goes at the 503 to Aberle here, and Hunt on average normally is I screwed that up. Sorry, my fault. Kareem Hunt on average is normally going at the 505 as running back 28. Seems like pretty solid value, but you're also talking about drafting a quote-unquote backup running back in the 5th round. Is this something, with all your high-stakes acumen, something that you could make a case for if you were doing this in this format?
Yeah, you can make a case for it. Kareem Hunt scored the same as Nick Chubb last year when he was there. So you could make the case that he's just as much of a starting back as Nick Chubb is. He's a pass-catching back. I like him. He's super talented. I don't know if I'm just looking at some of the other guys that went after him. I think I might have taken Hunt there. That's probably the guy I would have gone with.
McLaurin or Woods? You have a preference there? Because we know the target share for McLaurin could be out of this world, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but Woods might have the better quarterback in this situation.
Oh, he does. I do like McLaurin better, but I mean the quarterback play is super important for wide receivers, so it's pretty close. I'll take McLaurin.
Mike Shope. We'll talk about his team. As it turns out when it's all said and done here, Dave. But I kind of want to get your opinion on this. He gets the two high target, high volume receivers early with Adams and Jones, and then he kind of backdoors into 3 running backs that should get a lot of volume here with Bell, Carson, and Jones. We normally talk about getting the high volume, high touch running backs early and then kind of cobbling your receivers together. We haven't talked about maybe going with guys who are going to see maybe 160, 170 targets. I don't know if is that too crazy to say for Adams and Jones? And then he gets 3 guys that have some warts on them. Obviously, Bell's let people down. Carson's been hurt. Jones, we don't know how much of a volume or how many touches he's going to get in Tampa. This is an interesting way of attacking this draft with the receivers early and then the running backs.
Yeah, I'm not huge on Chris Carson this year, but I get the concept. It's a solid offense. If he stays healthy, he'll do well. Rojo, that's a little early ADP-wise for him, but that's fine. I mean, if that's where you want to take him, at least it seems early. This could really work out well for Shope.
Ronald Jones normally going at the 5-12. So about roughly, a little bit less than a half round. Let's get into the 6th round here and talk about what's going on. We had the 3rd rookie running back go off the board, and that was DeAndre Swift at the 601 tonight to Elliot Christ, followed by T.Y. Hilton. Once again, flirting with that turn, Dave. He goes at the 602 tonight. That's the number 3 receiver drafted by the 2015 main event champ, Gary Allen. Cam Akers, another rookie running back. Actually, 3 rookie running backs go in this round here. Cam Akers, Davis Maddock, followed by J.K. Dobbins to Chris Birchby. I can't remember if we talked about this last night. I'm going to throw it to you right now and ask you your opinion on this. Davis Maddock had a choice. I mean, I'm sure he was considering other players than just 2 rookie running backs. You have Akers in front of you. You have Dobbins in front of you. In this format, the Best Ball Slim, where you get all 16 weeks, where would you be leaning? Would you be leaning towards Akers or Dobbins there if you're going to go with a rookie running back?
I would lean towards Akers simply because there's less competition. Well, there's more competition as far as bodies go, but I mean,
but less talent.
Right. Ingram's actually a really quality back, and I think the case can be made that none of the other backs, in spite of the coach speak saying that they're all good, I think you can make the case that the other 3 might not be good at all.
So right after Dobbins goes to Birchby, so Maddock takes Akers and then Dobbins goes to Birchby. Devontae Parker to Mike Shope right after that, followed by Hunter Henry, the number 1 tight end for Ross Lively, the 2018 FPC champ. Darius Geis right after that, 3rd running back selected by Jake Seeley. Stephon Diggs is the number 2 wide receiver for Theo Greminger. He does not take a wide receiver till the 5th round, but now he goes back-to-back at the position. The 3rd quarterback is now off the board. Kyler Murray to Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell there at the 609. Thank you. Sorry. Marquise Brown. This math, it's not good. Marquise Brown to the 6'10", to Jason Aberle right after that is his number 2 receiver. A.J. Green to Mike Tagliere, and then Will Fuller to David Hubbard. Will Fuller, once again, getting some love in this format, Dave. I don't get it. I never will get it. But David Hubbard won a boatload of money in 2016 doing stuff like this, so far be it for me to criticize him. I don't think I could get on board with Will Fuller as my number 2 receiver, even given the talent he has assembled at the other positions.
You know, the case for Will Fuller is, he doesn't have great hands, and he gets hurt a lot. But I mean, he gets open frequently. He's got a phenomenal quarterback throwing to him. There's not a ton of competition for targets there. So if he actually stays healthy, he might put up quite a good season. And is this his third year, right?
Fuller?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's more than that.
Fourth year?
I think so. I'm going to look it up right now.
I'm trying to think of all the years Meyer's been trying to trade him to me now. So it must be his 4th year he's coming.
Yeah, at 2Packer on Twitter, who Dave and I are in plenty of private dynasty leagues with. That's sort of why I think 2Packer plays dynasty, to try and trade, to acquire Will Fuller and then try to trade him
for a hilarious amount of picks.
Yes, exactly. Dave, this is Will Fuller's 5th year.
5th year.
He was the 21st pick in the 2016 draft, so that would be 16, 17, 18, 19. This will be his 5th year. 26 years old.
How many games has he played, I wonder, in his career?
Now, that is a great question.
I bet he hasn't played 3 full years worth of games.
I actually forgot he went to Notre Dame. I totally forgot about that. I don't know. This seems bizarre. Okay, I can tell you this. He played – okay, let's put this to you right now. Play a little guessing game here, Dave.
All right, I won't look it up then.
So, yeah, don't look it up. 64 games is the total he could have played.
Yes.
Over the course of his career thus far. Now, the total I'm going to give you.
You're going to give me a total, and I'm going to do an over-under? Includes.
No. You're going to guess how many games he's played.
All right.
But the total that, when I reveal the amount, this includes games he left early.
Okay. So how many games has he started and completed? Not
started, just played in. I'll give you this. He has started one fewer game than he's played in his career, so it's basically the same number.
Okay.
So 64 is the total. How many games has Will Fuller played in? Go to the BTR chat here, see if anybody's got any
46.
guess. Great guess. Bad Price is Right guess. 42.
Yeah.
He
played in the last 42.
It's interesting because he played in 14 games his rookie year.
Yeah.
Then it went down to 10. Yeah. Then it went down to 7. and then it's last year he played in 11 games.
Oh my God!
Hard for me to get on board with that.
For his hamstring, always.
I mean, I don't.
Soft tissue.
It's soft tissue injuries. I don't think he's had like broken bones or. Mental health or anything like that. I think it's all been soft tissue. I don't.
Mental health.
Well, I mean that's another thing.
A nervous breakdown.
Well, I mean, whatever it is. I don't want to make light of it, but that's an issue that certainly people are dealing with in the real world and in the NFL too.
Yeah, especially nowadays.
See Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Okay, so Will Fuller goes at the 6-12 there. Let's move on here and talk about the 7th round, Dave. Tyler Boyd to David Hubbard as his number 3 receiver. Dak Prescott, number 4 quarterback off the board to Mike Tagliere. Jarvis Landry and Michael Gallup back-to-back there to Aberle and then Patrick and McDowell. Quarterback round here. Deshaun Watson, number 5 quarterback to Theo Greminger here tonight at the 7:05. Hayden Hurst will be the starting tight end for Jake Seeley and the Fighting Seeleys from the Athletic there. Julian Edelman, the number 3 wide receiver taken by Ross Lively, followed by Russell Wilson to Mike Shope. That is the number 6 quarterback. Nope.
Yes.
6 quarterback off the board. Tyler Higbee, remember him last night, the Scott Engel, in what seemed to be the 101? It was actually the 4th round. Tonight he falls to the 709. Damian Williams off the board to Davis Maddock as his number 3 running back at the 7:10. Philip Lindsay off the board to Gary Allen at the 7:11, followed by Jared Cook at the 7:12 to Elliot Christ.
Where does Lindsay normally go? What's his ADP?
I was actually hoping you were going to talk about something other than that because I wanted to look that up.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Last night he went pretty late.
Yeah.
One owner, was that Mr. Consistency?
Yes, it was. That was Bob Lung from Big Guy Fantasy
he was
Sports.
He was the one who had he had Fournette and Barkley, if I recall correctly. Was
yes.
that right?
Yep.
And he was kind of weak at running back, and we were like, oh man, you got Lindsay at pretty late. It seemed like to me.
Was that his number 3? I thought he had one more.
Yeah, it was either his 3rd or 4th.
James White-ish.
Yeah, James
guy.
White and Lindsay. Wow, it's amazing we still remember this.
Yeah, well,
one whole day
it was less than 24 hours ago. Philip Lindsay last night went at the 12-10.
12-10.
Yeah,
wow.
Thanks to Ryan Poole pointing that out in the chat room right now. His ADP over the last week, 9-12.
9-12. So he's going early tonight.
Splitting the difference here tonight as he goes at the 7-11 here. Talk about Davis Maddox here. This pick is interesting with Damian Williams because he didn't have Edwards-Helaire. Mike Tagliere had him at the other end of the board at the 2-11. This is a good lesson for everybody out there. At least I'm on board with this pick. Just because you don't have the starter doesn't mean that there's not value in drafting the backup, even in the 6th round when you're talking about such an exciting situation as the Kansas City Chiefs backfield.
You're presuming that Damian Williams is the backup?
Who do you think is?
Right now?
Yeah.
It sure as hell isn't Damian Williams. He's the starter right now.
Oh, it's even a better value.
I mean, in all honesty, what do you think Andy Reid would say right now if you ask Andy Reid, hey, who's the starter? Oh, the rookie piece of crap that we drafted who hasn't proven
well, he's not
going to
call him a piece of crap.
He's like, the rookie who's done nothing whatsoever, hasn't even had a padded practice in the NFL.
Right. Who's the guy that had the story about they texted Mahomes when they were on the clock at the 32 pick on Thursday night of the NFL draft, and they said, hey, what do you think here? And he said Clyde. He texted back Clyde. And I don't know if that was Reed or the GM or whoever it was. But they like this guy quite a bit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's pose this question to you, my friend. How early is too early for Damian Williams? And before you answer that, I'll tell you that FFPC drafters on average over the last week have been taking Damian Williams at the 604 as running back 31 in this format.
Yeah, I think when you're here in the late 7th round, I think this is where I would look to take him. I would not reach to take him in the 6th round. In fact, I maybe would take him over Geist. I just don't like Geist. Sorry there.
No, I'm with you on that. I'd take him over Geist.
But I mean, there was a pretty big gap between, you have the three rookies kind of finish that tier, and then you had Geist kind of sitting on Never Never Land, and then you get onto the Damian Williams, James White, Cohen. Lindsey usually goes a little bit later. So I think, Williams is actually usually in that tier above that. So I think that's a really nice value for Davis Maddox.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because running backs like J.K. Dobbins normally goes after him. He's like right around Ronald Jones, Mark Ingram.
Right, yeah.
So I think that is a nice little value there.
At that point, even if it's someone, let's say if it's Geist, where does Geist normally go?
Not that much after. Darius Geist is actually going, I just had it, son of a gun, 705.
705. So if I'm drafting, I don't really care for Geist. But if it's the 9th round, it's like the 905, and Geist is out there and I need a running back, I probably would take him. Yeah. It's like, all right, it's 24 picks later, for God's sake. And the wisdom of the crowds tell me I should have taken him 2 rounds earlier, so I'm going to just take a shot at it.
He put out a tweet today saying he's all good and ready to go, like medically checked out. And I'm like,
and he could be.
You should have tweeted that out like in April. I don't feel great about it in late July that he says, hey, guys, I'm all good. Come get me. I don't know about that. Moving on here until the 8th round, 801. Let's kick this off. So when we last talked about the 7th round, Jared Cook was the final pick there to Elliott Christ. Chris doubles up on tight end here as he goes Cook and Gesicki. Then James White, the number 4 running back drafted by Gary Allen. Christian Kirk to Davis Maddox. Brandon Cooks is the number 2 receiver to Chris Birchby. TJ Hawkinson will be starting for Mike Schopp. Dave, I think you'll have some thoughts on that shortly. And then Deontay Johnson, the number 4 receiver to Ross Lively. Back-to-back tight ends here in the 7th and 8th for Jake Seeley from The Athletic. He goes Hayden Hurst in the 7th. Right here, Rob Gronkowski. That's right, Rob Gronkowski backing up Hayden Hurst. You heard about that. You heard it here first. Marvin Jones, the number 3 receiver to Theo Graminger, followed by Tariq Cohen to Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell, of course, from RotoViz and Dynasty League Football. That's their number 2 running back. That's juicy. Let's talk about that. Noah Fant and Jonnu Smith, back-to-back tight ends to Aberle and Tagliere. And then Mecole Hardman to David Hubbard here at the 8-12. I don't think David Hubbard plays in a ton of best ball leagues, but this is a pretty standard's the wrong word. I mean, cookie cutter's the wrong word, but you can see what he's doing here as far as his makeup. He gets the elite running back obviously right away. That's a no-brainer. He gets the 1A, 1B quarterback here. He gets a top 5 tight end, and now he starts building up big play receivers, Evans, Fuller, Hardman, and then he gets the consistency, in quotes, with Tyler Boyd here. Not a bad way to make your to make your team as dominant as possible from the 101.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Hardman yesterday, and we both preferred Watkins over Hardman, so I guess that's the player that, is the one I would toss out, so to speak. But, it's fine if he likes him.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There were 9 tight ends off the board when Elliot Christ was up at the 7-12. He goes back-to-back tight ends with Cook and Gesicki. I don't know how you feel about that, but if I'm going to wait on tight end and there's 9 of them off the board, I'm probably going back-to-back, and I feel pretty good about myself getting Cook and Gesicki there. Yeah,
well, when I was looking at what he did, I think he realized that Birchby then took Higbee. So Birchby took the second. Right. He was the first guy to take a second tight end. So then he pressed the run here, and you saw the run really go after he took Cook and Gesicki. Because then all the other guys that hadn't taken tight ends realized they had to get one. And then the other people that had one tight end are like, oh, maybe I'll grab a second one. And you saw that happen in the next 2 rounds here. You see it even still going on now. We are not halfway through yet, but I'm going to ask you about Chris Birchby's wide receivers here from the 9 spot. Only Keenan Allen, only Brandon Cooks. Winning strategy here to load up on tight ends and running backs and fill in the receiver cracks later? You think he's going to be able to do it? I think he could, sure. I mean, it's possible. Allen and Cooks, they're both veterans. I really like that those are what I would call low-risk picks, in that all they have to do is stay healthy and have a typical one of their seasons, and he's got 2 fine wide receivers. And it's still it's the 9th round. He's got plenty of time to grab receivers. Mike Shope was one of the last teams, not the last, but one of the last teams to wait or to grab a tight end. He gets Hockenson here, Dave. I was Team Hockenson 3 or 4 months ago, and you never were. Quite frankly, I don't think you have been basically since October of last year. I think you've been pretty down on TJ. Yeah, you know why? It's because he pissed me off. He's on a couple of my dynasty teams. He made me mad because he sucks so bad. Did you end up trading him anywhere? No. Are those tight end premium leagues at all? Dynasty leagues? I'm in some, but I don't own Hockenson in a tight end premium league. So I guess even me and I own TJ Hockenson in a couple of dynasty leagues, non-tight end premium. I don't think I'd be on board with him as my starting tight end here. It's a little dicey. I mean, good for him that he gets Russell Wilson at quarterback and he still has 3 running backs and 3 receivers there. But I think I would have rather have had Gronk. I definitely would have rather had Fant. I don't know how you're feeling. You might have rather had Dallas Goedert than TJ Hockenson at that point. It's possible. I mean, it depends on who else he grabs as a tight end. Hockenson, I read a lot of his article, and they compared Hawkinson's rookie season to rookie seasons of other elite tight ends, and it's actually kind of fairly comparable. So I actually felt a little better having read that article. Right. But I guess we'll just see what happens. I mean, they did draft him, 10th overall, and it was 10th or 11th, somewhere around there. Yeah, right around there, around the same range where Elon got picked by the same team. Yeah, good point. So yeah, I don't want to crap all over Hockenson. I mean, there's a chance he could have a really good sophomore season. I mean, and if he does, Mike Shope's team's are looking pretty good here. Yeah, it is. I mean, he still needs to address tight end. Is kind of the point I think we can both make, is that he can't be feeling super comfortable with a second-year tight end who did really virtually nothing except for the first game of the season. Tariq Cohen, well, I'll tell you what. Let's save the Cohen conversation for Patrick and McDowell for later. I'll get to that shortly. Let's kick off the 9th round here as this draft has moved on to the second half, and they are in the 10th. Blake Jarwin to David Hubbard as his number 2 tight end, him at the 901 tonight. Latavius Murray to Mike Tagliere. Now, bear in mind, Tagliere had Ezekiel Elliott, and he goes with Latavius Murray there instead. And I can bring this up right now because Tony Pollard just went off the board in the 10th round to Davis Maddock. I think that's interesting. And there might be some Twitter back and forth here, too, because Tagliere took Edwards-Helaire at the 211. Davis Maddock takes Damian Williams at the 710. Tagliere takes Ezekiel Elliott at the 102. Davis Maddock takes Tony Pollard at the 1003. Kind of interesting stuff there. And we'll see if that plays out. But Latavius Murray, again, Tagliere didn't have Kamara, but he still took him over Pollard. I think that's interesting. Dallas Goedert to the Godfather, Jason Aberle as his number 2 tight end. Kerryon Johnson and Alexander Madison after that to
Kerryon Johnson to Patrick and McDowell, Alexander Madison to Theo Greminger. Debo Samuel, the number 4 receiver drafted by Jake Seeley. He grabs him at the 9:06. Duke Johnson to Ross Lively right after that in the middle of the 9th at the 9:07. Darius Slayton, 4th wide receiver taken by Mike Shope. A couple of quarterbacks around a running back here. Josh Allen to Birchby, Keyshawn Vaughn to Maddock, Tom Brady to Gary Allen, and the last pick of the 9th round is Austin Hooper to Elliott Christ. Dave, we talked about Christ going with the back-to-back tight ends in the 7th and 8th. Is Austin Hooper overkill at the 9-12 there, given how late he waited to grab his first tight end? Or is this, because I know you've done this in fantasy leagues with quarterback before, haven't seen you do it with tight end, but do you think that's overkill there to go Cook, Gesicki, and then still go get Hooper?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit. And what I'm kind of wondering is, I wonder if he was considering Hooper when he took Cook and Gesicki, and then he was all mad because he came back to him and he was like,
right.
Hooper's still there? Forget it, I'm taking it.
I've done that before plenty of times.
So I could, if that's the case, I could see that argument.
He's getting almost a full round of value on Hooper there as far as ADP goes. Yeah,
I mean, now actually with him doing that, it really does press the other owners that only have one tight end. Even if you have, Maddock and Birchby, you have Kelsey and Kittle, you probably still need another one. Well, actually, I'm sorry, Birchby has Higbee. But, Maddock only has Kittle. You gotta grab another one eventually.
It's kind of interesting there, too, for Chris. He took 3 running backs in the first 6 rounds. He had 3 receivers in the first 5 rounds. So, it's not like he's hurting at the other positions. Maybe this was a luxury that he was willing to take a chance on to get that tight end 15, which is where he's going in FFPC Best Ball Slims, to get him here in the 9th round as his 3rd tight end. And bear in mind, at that point, now he doesn't have a quarterback yet, but bear in mind, at that point, Dave, there were only 8 quarterbacks off the board. So he can make some hay while the sun shines here coming up in his next turn.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I think the 11th round you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks go. Because neither Maddock nor Chris have one, and if these guys are paying attention, they really should start pounding them. But they're both going to probably get some value. In fact, you're probably going to like both their teams are going to start out with the Garoppolo, Nick Foles, Dwayne Haskins type
Sam
team.
Darnold.
Yeah, Balky's favorite. All your guys.
How is Darnold my favorite?
I'm just saying, 3 crappy quarterbacks is your favorite way to go.
It is my favorite way to go. That's why I love Richard Mallon's team so much. From last, in fact, I think Sigmund will. I could be speaking out of order here, but I think he was referring to Mallon's quarterbacks last night because Richard Mallon did not take one out of the 8 spot. He did not take one until round 15 out of an 18-round draft last night. Or no, round 14, I think it was.
Yeah. I mean,
no, it was round 15.
Was it?
Because he got Mims in the 18th. He went 15, 16, 17 quarterback. And
what did he say?
He said, he's like, nice job taking the quarterback tank to empty. On that, or something to that, and I thought that was pretty good. Okay, so Hooper goes with the final pick of the 9th round here. Dave, let's get on to the 10th round. Elliott Christ goes with Jamison Crowder as his number 4 receiver. Jack Doyle to Gary Allen as his backup tight end to Evan Ingram. Tony Pollard to Davis Maddock, who I already mentioned. That is actually Maddock's 5th running back here in the first 10 rounds. CeeDee Lamb is the number 3 receiver to Chris Birchby, followed by Jordan Howard, the 4th running back selected by Mike Shope. Jay Sternberger, my guy, is backing up Hunter Henry for Ross Lively in this format this year. Matt Ryan, the first quarterback selected by Jake Seeley. Chris Herndon off the board to Theo Greminger. And then Zach Moss goes to Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell. Mike Williams and Sterling Shepard right after that to Averly and Tagliere. And then Tevin Coleman to David Hubbard here in the 10th. And I'll bring this up here as we wrap up the 10th round, Dave. David Hubbard already had Raheem Mostert. Is it enough in an 18-round best ball slim to just go to bat with Mostert and Coleman in the 49ers backfield, or is there more to be done there?
Well, if you go skip to his next pick, you'll see more got done. But yeah,
he's not a Niner anymore, though.
No, I know he's not. But I'm saying that I'm talking about just grabbing a running back
yeah.
Team.
Right.
It's fine. I think you can pull it off. I mean, you look at the offense. I mean, McCaffrey's going to get his, and then you look at the 49ers offense is great. So that really does. It's nice. I mean, you just have to worry about bye weeks a little bit.
Chris Birchby, I know I've talked about his receivers a little bit already. CeeDee Lamb is your number 3, and I understand. You look at the rest of his team. He's got Kelsey and Higbee. He's got Josh Allen as his quarterback. He's got 4 running backs that he drafted in the first 6 rounds. I know you got to be weak somewhere. This is an incredible field that he's drafting against. CeeDee Lamb makes me feel a little bit uneasy as my number 3 receiver here, given that he might be the number 3 receiver for his own team.
Yeah, it is very true. He's a super talented player. So I think that he's looking at upside not flyers, but upside guys at this point. And CeeDee Lamb's hopefully going to be part of maybe 3 or 4, I don't want to say straight receivers, so he's going to have to get another quarterback. But he might not need to take another running back. When you have Jacobs, Connor, Gordon, and Dobbins, I don't even see the need to take another running back necessarily. All
right, I want to bring up a few pairs of names here and see if I'm just losing it or if there's something here. Dave, tonight, Matt Breida, Jordan Howard, separate teams. David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen, separate teams. Edwards-Helaire, Damian Williams, separate teams. Murray and Kamara, separate teams. Hunt and Chubb, not on the same team. Kerryon Johnson, DeAndre Swift, not on the same team. Moss and Singletary, not on the same team. Ingram and Dobbins, separated. It goes on and on and on and on. It's trying to lock up a backfield as much as you and I have talked about the importance of doing it in a closed league like this. Are we overrating it a little bit? Because these talented drafters here, by and large, with the exception of maybe Hubbard at the 1 spot with the Niners running backs here tonight, they've avoided it. It hasn't been a big deal to them. Smart, stupid, indifferent? How do you feel about this?
Theo got Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison.
That is true, yeah.
But I think it's fine. I mean, you can go any direction you want. If you're going with a little bit more of a receiver-heavy team and you're running backs later, I think you're fine just taking stabs at other players. And some people just don't like to handcuff. When it's an 18-round format, it does limit you a little bit because then you're tying up 2 roster spots on one team in one position. So I kind of get it. If you want to just take some stabs at other players' backups or other players like standalone, like Zach Moss, for example, he's going to have some standalone value. I mean, the
right.
core role. So I can see that pick. And Kerryon Johnson, he's going to get carries almost for sure. So I can see that as well. And a lot of these guys, there's so much time sharing going on in the NFL. I totally get it.
As a reminder, this is the first year in the FFPC Pros versus Joes. How many years have we been doing this? 10?
Too many?
No, thank you.
I don't know.
It's getting. If it hasn't been a decade, it's close. This is the first time we've ever had a best ball slim. 18 rounds, no kickers, no defenses. And if you want to play in a format like this, go to myffpc.com. Not only do we have the best ball slims active there, but the best ball classics are there, as well as the Terminator satellites, Superflex, plenty of different best ball leagues to choose from. And don't forget our FFPC Terminator tournament coming up, I think in about 5 days, we kick that thing off. You'll definitely want to jump in that. $350 for an entry, $1,000 if you want to pick up 3 teams. $25,000 grand prize this year. Huge prize pool. Check that out at myffpc.com. We'll tell you about a few of the more leagues if you want to play for the big money, the 6 figures, the $500,000. Stay tuned, and we'll talk to you about that when you can sign up for that. Moving on to the 11th round here. Matt Breida to David Hubbard at the 11:01 as his number 4 running back. That is the 2016 FFPC main event overall champ. Anthony Miller off the board to Mike Tagliere at the 11:02. Chase Edmonds goes to Jason Aberle as his number 4 running back. The first team to back up a quarterback, it was Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell from RotoViz and DLF. Drew Brees is going to be backing up Kyler Murray. That's 2 consecutive Pros versus Joes drafts, Dave, where Drew Brees was drafted as a backup. I guess not that all that surprising now that I say it out loud. Drew Brees is normally being drafted as quarterback 12. So, half the time he's probably being drafted as a backup. Not a big deal. Henry Ruggs right after that to Theo Greminger, followed by Preston Williams, the receiver for Miami, to Jake Seeley. Jared Goff will be the top signal caller for Ross Lively as he goes at the 11:07 tonight. Jerry Jeudy to Mike Shope. John Brown to Chris Birchby. Jalen Rager to Davis Maddock. And Emmanuel Sanders to Gary Allen. Those 4 receivers all go in the 11th round. Marlon Mack wraps up things here in the 12th, going to Elliot Christ. If you had Jonathan, well, I guess this is more of a rookie running back discussion, Dave. How important is it, and we'll frame it with Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift. if you draft one of those guys in this format, or just really any 12-team closed best ball contest, how important is it to get the other guy later to you if you're drafting one of those rookie running backs, trying to lock up that backfield? Do you care or do you not care? Specifically for the rookies only.
Well, you have to look at each one. I mean, with Edwards-Helaire, you have to spend a 6th-rounder, 7th-rounder on Damian Williams, so I'm probably not doing that if I were to do it. Jonathan Taylor, I would take a look at it because, what's his name? Marlon Mack's pretty cheap. So I think I would look at trying to do that, sure. Dobbins and Ingram, no, because they're
back-to-back.
Back-to-back.
Yeah.
Akers and Darrell Henderson, possibly, but the thing with that, I probably would just look at either Akers or Henderson, whichever one I preferred. I mean, I kind of prefer Akers at this point, but Henderson's, could be a value. Because you still have to deal with Malcolm Brown possibly, too, so there's always that possibility. And then Swift and Kerryon Johnson, I would actually look at that for sure. I think that's one I would consider.
We have talked about the rookie running backs. What about the rookie receivers here, Dave? Are you on board with any of the rookie receivers? I guess this is just more of a question in general, not necessarily this format, but this year, given the truncated offseason, wide receiver is not the easiest position to get accustomed to in the NFL. And you look at some of the landing spots for some of these guys. CeeDee Lamb goes to Dallas, where there's already 2 established guys there. Jerry Jeudy goes to Denver, where he's got to deal with Courtland Sutton and Noah Fant. You have Jalen Reagor, I guess, is in a prime situation. Justin Jefferson just has to deal with Thielen. Are you on board with any of these guys this year? Do any of these rookie receivers excite you from a redraft perspective? Yeah,
I like Jerry Jeudy. I think his route running, he gets open consistently. He's going to be open immediately from day one. And I think that he's going to start from day one too. So, I mean, he's going to have to worry about Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup like CeeDee Lamb has to, even though Lamb will be out there in 3 receiver sets. Ruggs, you still make the argument that maybe he's just a speed demon. I don't like Reagor compared to, I just think Judy is the guy for me.
All right. I want to ask you about John Brown, who went off the board to Chris Birchby here. Take a drink. We're talking about Chris Birchby's receivers again. I feel like I've been doing this every 5 minutes. Nice. John Brown is still in Buffalo, Dave, but joining him in that wide receiver core this year is Stephon Diggs, who comes over from Minnesota. And I feel like those guys aren't necessarily complementary to each other. I think that what John Brown does really well, I think Stephon Diggs does pretty well too. And I'm curious to your thoughts about, because Brown had a pretty good season last year with Josh Allen throwing to him.
Early on, and then he fell off a lot in the middle of the season.
So you're kind of off John Brown then this year?
Yeah, not a huge fan of John Brown, although he did stack him with Josh Allen. So he's got the Allen Brown stack, right?
And he drafted him 3 picks ahead of where he normally goes. So I mean, it wasn't an overdraft at all.
Yeah, it's fine. Pairing him up with those other receivers. I mean, again, he's working the receivers, and I think he's doing fine. John Brown, I wouldn't have a problem with that pick.
All right, moving on to the 12th round. Boston Scott at the 12:01 to Elliott Christ. Elliott takes Boston Scott as his number 5 running back here. Justin Jefferson to Gary Allen right after that. Irv Smith, a young tight end with an old name.
I know. I was just thinking that. I love that name, Irv.
It's so annoying. It's like Earl Hafler, this hotshot wide receiver out of Vanderbilt or something. You never hear stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's not a real person, by the way. Irv Smith off the board at the 12:03 tonight. Sammy Watkins to Birchby. So Birchby really focusing in on these receivers now, Dave, as he takes Sammy Watkins at the 12:04. Curtis Samuel off the board to Mike Shope right after that. That is Shope's number 6 receiver. Golden Tate to Ross Lively. And then you have Darrell Henderson going to Jake Seeley there at the 12:07 tonight. N'Keal Harry, the 101 in several dynasty leagues last year. Ouch. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Well, the thing is, he could have a great year this year.
Could be a value this year, yeah.
Yeah,
no question.
It might be awesome. And
for all those FFPC leagues where N'Keal Harry got cut at roster cut down, you can go ahead and grab him there.
Yeah.
Never know what'll happen. Theo Greminger takes him at the 12:08. Ian Thomas as the backup tight end to Mark Andrews for Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell right after that, followed by Paris Campbell to Jason Aberle, Eric Ebron to Mike Tagliere, and then Carson Wentz backing up Patrick Mahomes for David Hubbard.
Carson Wentz at the 12-12. It's just so cheap. It just seems so cheap to me. I don't know what his ADP is, but I mean, God gracious, it just seems like such a deal.
You know what, Dave? You might be right on. No, maybe you're not right. Hold on. Let me look this up. I'll do this the right way instead of messing around here. Carson Wentz, 901. So that is a great deal. That's like 4 rounds, right? 4 rounds of value.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Good job by David Hubbard. It's why he's the best, or why a lot of people view him as the best. I think he's one of the best, no question.
Well, he has Mahomes, so the argument's like, what do you need a quarterback for? You don't until until something happens or whatever. Maybe your kneecap pops out, and you have Carson Wentz just waiting in the wings for you.
Right. Yeah.
Great pick, 12-12. What a pick that is.
Right, exactly. Okay, so talking about this 12th round here, which, by the way, I should point this out in the BTR chat for all the guys and gals hanging out in there. Ryan Poole just pointed out 2009 was the first year of Pros versus Joes, so this is the 12th year of
That's awesome
Pros
that
versus
he was able
Joes.
to find it.
Oh, yeah.
How did he find it?
I don't know. Ryan Poole's he's a wunderkind. He knows things.
Were we having My Fantasy League at that time? Or RC Sports?
I forgot we were on MFL. But you're right, we were, weren't we?
Yeah, I had to copy and paste team names into leagues.
That
was very unfun.
There was times when people were drafting.
You were on MFL then, I think.
Yeah, but there's times when people were drafting live in Vegas, and this is when I really wasn't going out there, and I would wait till the wee hours. And I would get the draft boards emailed to me, the images, and then I would stay up the rest of the night loading rosters.
That was so horrible.
It was just the most arduous process ever, and the way that things have become automated, not just from that sense, but from a just a streamlined way of doing things in general has been such a blessing, because I lost a lot of sleep, man. It was not fun.
What's funny is, even right now, the live events, we actually, when we do live drafts, we prefer the classic draft boards. We don't believe in having monitors or anything like that.
Right.
So we still actually have people that do the, overnight. They will, it's this old retired couple, and I don't know if they do it themselves or it's them and some, a couple of people.
They farm it out to other people.
Yeah. And so then, we give them the actual, the sticker boards or whatever, the small ones. And overnight, they put them in there, and they do a pretty awesome job. Every once in a while, they'll screw up, like someone's, Antoine Smith and Anton Smith or something like that when the names are close. But by and large, they do a really fine job, and they're really good people. And we're glad to pay them some money for it. And the fact is, we can actually go out to eat at a nice restaurant that night instead of having to do the same thing.
Yeah, it was so weird the first time I was able to do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what Vegas is like when you're not working. Speaking of sleep deprivation, I must be suffering from it right now. I was wrong. Ryan Poole did not point that out in the chat room. It was the one, the only Henry Mudo who pointed that out.
Mudo,
that
thank
this
you
is
very
the
much.
12th year of Pros versus Joes. Henry, thank you so much. We couldn't have done it without you. That is good stuff right there. 12 years of Pros versus Joes. What a time to be alive. Okay, so kidding aside, Irv Smith, you like him as the Minnesota tight end to own this year, right?
Actually, I don't really care for Irv Smith. I don't really care to own a Minnesota.
You don't like Rudolph, I can tell you that. I know that.
That's true. I'm not a fan of either one, to be honest.
So do you like Justin Jefferson, just curiously, who actually went off the board tonight to Gary Allen at the 1202? Do you like him? I feel like
not particularly.
The only pass catcher you like in Minnesota this year is Thielen, right?
Yeah, I like Dalvin. The offense will run through Dalvin Cook. Madison will get his.
You think Madison will get his?
Yeah, he'll get some carries.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Justin Jefferson, he's not a huge fan of the talent. Irv Smith, same thing. You look at it, you look at his profile in Mock Draftable. It's like puckered lips there. It's like
right, yeah,
nothing expanding at all. He's not elite in any one category, and he still does have to deal with Kyle Rudolph. I know that Rudolph's turning into more the blocking tight end supposedly, but I'm not buying it. So that's just my opinion, and I'm sticking with it.
You teased this with Theo Greminger's pick with N'Keal Harry before as the number 5, his number 5 receiver that he takes in the 12th round. You said that, well, just watch out for Harry this year. Maybe bouncing back, maybe righting the wrongs of his rookie year.
Yeah, what happened?
Was
he mostly hurt?
He was hurt.
Yeah, that's the thing is because he was a super talented player coming out. He actually, back when phenom score is not something that RotoViz is doing anymore, but he had one of the highest phenom scores coming out this past year. The team invested a high pick in him, and all of a sudden, is he just to be forgotten? I don't think so. He's a talented player, and I think the Patriots are going to do whatever they can to make him successful.
It's kind of interesting because I'm trying to think how it went down last year. but the number 32 pick in the 2019 draft and the number 32 pick in the 2018 draft were both skill position guys. And the 2019 draft and the 2020 draft, they're both skill position guys and players that we didn't really see coming. We didn't necessarily see the Patriots taking N'Keal Harry at 32. We didn't necessarily see the Chiefs taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 32 this past year. And it drastically changed the front end of dynasty drafts this past year, in the past 2 years, really. It's so weird to see how things like that work out.
And so if you're a first-round pick, every team has like a fifth-year option. Is that not correct?
Yes, correct.
So, I mean, not that this is a huge deal, but the Patriots now have a fifth-year option with Harry. If he'd been taken with pick 33 or 34, it's a 4-year deal.
Right.
So, I mean, they want to develop him. They have a shot. They have an extra year to work with him and figure it out.
If you were a running back in this year's, this is not really a fantasy question. This is not really a fantasy question. This is more of a real-life football question. Wouldn't you rather have been Jonathan Taylor, where the team doesn't have that fifth-year option, than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who goes at like 5 or 6 picks before him, but he's that first-round pick, and then the team can keep him under control for that extra year, whereas the Colts can't do that with Taylor?
Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. I see that argument. Yeah, I get it.
If you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I think because it's the Chiefs and because they're great, and you're playing with like the world champs or whatever, it's like, I think I'd be fine being Edwards-Helaire and yeah, I guess I'm stuck with this awesome team and a $450 million quarterback.
Right, exactly, and that's my next point too, is because at some point the Bills are going to come due for the Chiefs, and maybe they're going to come due at the same time Edwards-Helaire is getting free agency in front of them too. It's
possible. Although if he's a successful running back, if they win a couple more Super Bowls and he tests free agency, he might have a few rings and he might move on. So it depends on what you value as winning. If he does well, he's going to get paid eventually. I think he'll be all right.
You had mentioned earlier in the broadcast that you thought round 11 was going to be the quarterback round. Am I misspeaking?
I was wrong. Totally wrong.
You were I wouldn't say totally wrong. You're pretty close. It was round 13. Where they all went off the board.
Off.
Well, I mean, 2 rounds, whatever. You're talking about the middle of a draft. Who knows what these guys are capable of? Let's take you through the 13th round here. Brashad Perriman at the 13:01 to David Hubbard. Greg Olsen is the number 3 tight end drafted by Mike Tagliere there at the 13:02. Aaron Rodgers backing up Lamar Jackson for Jason Aberle, followed by Antonio Gibson to Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell. Naheem Hines, the pass-catching running back for Indianapolis, goes to Theo Greminger. And as I point out that I want to point out, point out that Greminger took Jonathan Taylor in the 4th round, so he gets 2/3 of that Colts backfield. Then here come the quarterbacks. Daniel Jones to Jake Seeley, Cam Newton to Ross Lively, Matthew Stafford to Mike Shope. And by the way, those 3 are all backing up the starting quarterbacks for all 3 of those teams. Those are the number 2 quarterbacks drafted by each one of those PBJ competitors. Sony Michel, saw news on him today. Chris Birchby takes him here in the 13th. Jimmy Garoppolo to Davis Maddock as his number 1 quarterback. Maddock waits on quarterback, gets Garoppolo here in the 13th. We'll see what he does going forward to see how he fills in that position. Denzel Mims, about 5 rounds earlier than where he went last night. Gary Allen takes him as his number 6 receiver. And then Baker Mayfield, the final pick of the 13th round to Elliott Christ. I do want to point out that, and we'll get into analysis here in the 13th, but the 14th round is now completed. I'll take you through that as well. Elliott Christ waits until the 13th round to take Mayfield as his number 1 quarterback, does not wait any time to take his number 2. He goes back-to-back quarterbacks. Mayfield and then Ben Roethlisberger. Ryan Tannehill to back up Tom Brady for Gary Allen here in the 14th round. Laviska Shenault to Davis Maddock. And then Joe Burrow to Chris Birchby about 5 rounds later than where he went last night. All those FFPC drafts. A.J. Dillon right after that to Mike Scope, I need to take a drink of water here, I think, as the number 5 running back there for the WGR Buffalo Radio Wunderkind. Too much Wunderkind on the show tonight. I apologize for that. Dawson Knox, the number 3 tight end to Ross Lively. Anthony McFarland after that to Jake Seeley. Hunter Renfrow, the Las Vegas Raiders slot receiver, to Theo Greminger. And then we get a semi-rainbow here to finish off round 14. Joshua Kelly to Patrick and McDowell. Gerald Everett to the as the number 3 tight end selected by Jason Aberle. Then you have Gardner Minshew backing up Dak Prescott to Mike Tagliere. Jerick McKinnon as the final pick of the 14th round to David Hubbard.
Hey,
so
he's got all three properties in Monopoly.
That is what I was alluding to earlier. I asked you if that was enough. If having Mostert and Coleman was enough. I guess the point is moot now because the Hubbard, it wasn't enough.
Nope.
And he gets all three running backs. Now
the question is it Pacific, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, or is it
like Oriental? Yeah, and what were the other two?
New York?
No, that's New York is orange.
Orange, yeah.
Oriental, what were the other two? I'm going to look that up right now. Because isn't it funny that we both remember the Oriental? All right.
I remember Baltic and Mediterranean easily because it's just
but
two properties.
That's only two.
I know, because it's two. That's why I remember it. But I can't remember.
All right, so it's Oriental, and it was come on. Now they want me to order it? This is unbelievable.
Why don't you just put in Monopoly?
I did, and then they're like, hey, here's where you can order it.
Google search and then search
okay,
images.
Vermont and Connecticut are the other two. Oriental, Vermont, and Connecticut.
So I guess the other one's right. It was North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and something else.
Pacific.
Pacific, yeah. Right.
Those are the greens, as it were. I'm just looking at this right now. Do you know they have in the United Kingdom Monopoly? It's totally different properties.
Was it like Oxfordshire? So
okay,
this might be like really biased, like the slums or crappy parts or whatever.
So in the UK, yeah. Park Place and Boardwalk are Park Lane and Mayfair.
Oh, Mayfair.
Yeah. The Greens, Regent Street, Oxford Street, and Bond Street.
Oh, that's actually, dude, I should actually get the UK edition. That actually sounds pretty cool.
The light blue, the Angel Islington, Euston Road, and Pentonville Road.
It's so classy. I wonder if the pieces are different too.
Hey, I always thought.
What do they still have railroads?
They do. They call them stations. King's Cross.
Hey, they have that in Universal actually for the J.K. Dobby.
What?
The Harry Potter. The Harry Potter
okay.
ride.
All right. So you have King's Cross, Marylebone, Fenchurch Street, and Liverpool Street.
Oh, man.
And you'll never believe it. The utilities, they're called Electric Company and Waterworks in the United States. United Kingdom, they're called, you guessed it, Electric Company and Waterworks.
Oh, man.
So they are the same there. Oh, it was a fun little adventure.
Very nice.
All right, it was not very nice. Okay, so obvious question to you.
I'm going to order you that at UK and Monopoly.
Let's play it. We're going to play for real money. It's going to be fun.
Yes. Do you play, by the way, do you play $500 for free for the free parking?
No, we always, when I played it when I was a kid, we always, anytime you had to pay a fine or something, it would go into the kitty.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
And then, oh my goodness, the braggadocious terms that were thrown around after whoever won the kitty for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, they ruled the roost.
Really?
Oh, it was disgusting. That's why I hated playing it. It was ridiculous. All right, so moving on. This is what I wanted to talk to you about. McKinnon, overkill there. If you already had Mostert, if you already had Coleman, would you still be taking McKinnon in the 14th round?
I probably would not. I probably would have taken somebody else. That's just me. In fact, there's a lot of running backs that went right after him that I like. They're talking about Sonny Michel missing time and not being able to ready for camp. I didn't really read the article. It was on Roto something.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So Damian Harris is interesting. He went right after him. Carlos Hyde's interesting. Darrington Evans is another player that was a nice pick. So I think I would have gone differently. But if Hubbard wants to lock it up, they say McKinnon's going to be ready though. So if he says he's back, I mean, we'll see.
I'm skeptical, but again, David Hubbard has forgotten more about fantasy football than I'll ever know, so I'll check to the razor on that one. 15th round, Brandon Ayuk. He leads things off with Hubbard. Damian Harris, right after that to Mike Tagliere. Devontae Freeman off the board at the 15:03 to Jason Aberle. McDowell and Patrick take Alan Lazard. Robbie Anderson right after that as Greminger goes back-to-back receivers there. Darrington Evans as the 1506 pick tonight, followed by Carlos Hyde off the board there. O.J. Howard, the lone tight end taken in round 15. Antonio Brown, yeah, you knew you weren't going to get away from him. He's selected in the 15th tonight. Kirk Cousins, 1510. Justin Jackson at the 1511. And then Drew Lock at the 1512. So this is something I should bring up because we saw Poole and Tranquilli do this at the 12 spot last night, Dave. They go triple, Elliot Chris, goes triple tight end in round 7, 8, 9, and then he goes triple quarterback in 13, 14, 15 with Mayfield, Roethlisberger, and Locke. You don't see it done too often, but I think it turned out pretty nicely here.
Yeah, you can definitely make it work. I mean, he did a nice job, actually. He waited a long time at quarterback, and he was much smarter than I was in that situation because I would have taken somebody. But he popped in Marlon Mack, Boston Scott, and Jamison Crowder, all fine picks, actually, at that 12 spot. So he really got some depth there, running back and receiver, before attacking quarterback, and he did fine with Mayfield, Big Ben, and Drew Lock. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm actually liking that team. We'll get to that more when we do the team recaps coming up later on in the show. Want to take a phone call right now. We'll go out to the 740. You are on the air with David Balke on the HSFF Hour. Who are we talking to?
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell.
Gentlemen, welcome in. Glad to hear from you tonight. It is, we were talking about the tweet you guys put out. I think, Curtis, you put it out about how you guys were runner-up in your own league the last couple of years, still had a pair of top 15 finishes. Is this the team that's going to get you off the schneid this year? How do you feel about it?
I mean, I think we're both happy with the build, but it has been brutal drafting between these Joes here. I mean, we've been sniped on both sides hard. It was an absolute gut punch to lose Dallas Goedert where we lost him. And then a couple of rounds later, N'Keal Harry. I mean, we really had those guys circled. And then the rounds they were actually selected. So, it just goes to show that the value doesn't really drop when you're drafting with this quality of league mates.
Ryan, let me ask you, as far as team construction goes, as you look at, how you guys have put this together tonight, I know you didn't exactly get the players you wanted in a couple of spots because you got sniped, but by and large, the way that you put this team together, you happy with the construction?
Yeah, absolutely. We were pretty locked in on that 0 RB, or our side 0 RB. We knew we'd get it back in the first round from that 4 spot, and we just loved the wide receivers that were available to us in those rounds 2 through 5 range.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty solid. As I like all three of those guys. I mean, I think you're talking about a pretty big target share for all three of them, and then to get the guys that you got at running back in 8 through 10. I think you did a pretty good job there. Did anything stand out to you, not necessarily with your team, Curtis, but did anything necessarily stand out to you in this draft tonight that you didn't see coming or were a little surprised to see?
We were a little surprised to see, I mean, even from the 2 spot, just to see Elliott go number 2. Obviously, I think those top 4 picks are pretty locked in whatever order they're going to go in. And I was joking with Tags before the draft, asking if he was going to follow his rankings because he actually has Kamara number 2 in his personal rankings, but he said he might have something special for the format tonight. So that just got things off to a little bit of a weird start. And then, then of course, Ryan and I are thinking maybe we've got a shot at Saquon at 4, but everything kind of fell into line. I was a little surprised to see just the way that the quarterbacks went. To have that break all the way until the 6th round when we pulled the trigger on Kyler Murray, not to see somebody else jump for Dak or Deshaun. I think this is a big group of guys that are maybe part of that late round QB, upbringing, especially on the analyst side of this draft. And we thought we were going to be lucky to get Murray in the 6th, and we ended up taking him as the QB3.
Ryan, let me ask you something. How important is it for you guys to get one of those elite tight ends? Because you get Mark Andrews here roughly about a half round earlier than his ADP as you take him in the 2nd round. Were you guys kind of dead set on making sure you got an elite tight end in this draft?
Yeah, we really were, and we pegged Andrews there in that late 2nd round range. And even though we recognized that was probably a little bit of a reach, I think he fell to the later 3rd round in last night's draft. We just love the advantage that he gives us in this format. Expect another year similar to what we saw last season. So even though we knew it was reach going in. We were comfortable with that. It gave us some freedom to weigh on that position, which we did. Waited up Brad and Thomas.
Curtis, final question here for you. I'm looking at the roster right now between you and Ryan tonight, and I could be wrong, but by my count, I see 3 rookies on this roster, 3 rookie running backs, but none taken before round 10. Is that something that you will probably apply to most of your drafts this year, investing in rookie running backs but not investing early in them?
Yeah, on rotoviz.com today, one of our analysts and a big-time FFPC player, and Monty Fan, wrote about this a little bit, that, with everything going on with COVID-19 and these rookie backs really already being aggressively drafted by the high-stakes community, when we have rock-solid receivers going in the same range, it almost makes more sense to target the guys a little bit later on in the draft. It's kind of that dynamic that we saw with Nick Chubb, his rookie season, where there was an incumbent veteran that maybe wasn't firmly entrenched, but people were worried Carlos Hyde, would hold down the fort, and so Nick Chubb's ADP was depressed. And I think the same dynamic could be playing out here with Zach Moss in particular. That, Devin Singletary isn't exactly I don't think people are looking at him like a bona fide bell cow. And so, if Singletary weren't there and we were just looking at Frank Gore, people would be drafting Moss where Singletary's going. And so there's certainly a range of outcomes where Moss outperforms Singletary this year. Looks like we're going to be on the clock here. We can make our last pick live on the air.
All right. This is tremendous.
Three rookie backs is more than we probably wanted to grab, but because we went with the modified 0 RB build, it's just the way it played out. It just happened to be the values on the board for us.
All right, so take us through your last pick here, gentlemen. What are you thinking? I look at the roster that you've assembled so far. You have the 2 quarterbacks. You have the 3 tight ends. You have, I think, 6 running backs. The rest are all receivers. What are you looking at here with your last pick?
So for this last pick, in the best ball slim format, which I definitely applaud the FFPC for adding. I think it was warranted to add the slimmer format, take the defenses and the kickers out. I think it's important in this format versus the old 28-round format to get production from all of your picks. And we want to add another receiver here. There's literally only one guy left in our queue. We had loaded up 5 guys that we thought might make it here. 4 of them are gone, and this is going to be kind of a boring name, but it's a guy that I absolutely think will get some flex usage in this format for us, and so we're going to take Cole Beasley here.
There you go, Cole Beasley. Love it. That's a good pick right there. And so ends the draft of both Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell. As a reminder to all the listeners, you can follow Curtis on Twitter at CPatrickNFL. Check out all of his work at rotoviz.com. Ryan is at RyanMC23. Of course, check out his work at DynastyLeagueFootball.com at DL Football. Guys, tremendous to have you in Pros vs. Joes again. I hope this is the year that you guys break through, get that league title, get that main event entry next year comped. Good luck to both of you. Thanks for calling in tonight. Be good, and we'll talk to you later.
Hey, appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for covering the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Curtis Patrick, Ryan McDowell, ladies and gentlemen. Always good to have those guys on.
Yeah, both
for
great
sure.
players, both great sites, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
I subscribe to both.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say Rotoviz, too. It's tremendous work that
we have an ad deal with Rotoviz, and I still pay.
Well, I mean, it's not,
I don't even care. I pay.
Right, I was just going to say, before we've, become partners with either of those sites, I was a subscriber to both and really like the content that's churned out there. Although,
there's a lot. I mean, there's so much good fantasy content by a lot of these different pay sites. It's great.
I don't think that, given my Dynasty performance in my career, I should be touting Dynasty League football as a resource.
Funky, your Carrington team is about to become like a decade-long juggernaut. I'm so pissed off.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm really mad. I'll trade teams right now. Trade the whole team.
I'll have to look at it later, but potentially yes. All right, so moving on here in the 16th round, Dave. Dede Westbrook off the board here. You know what? I gotta fix my view here. Because I am not getting.
We're going to be done in 7 minutes by the way. Your little 90-minute show.
Yeah, we got to go through the teams here. Okay.
We're going to run it long. We don't care.
Yeah, I'm sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. I should have done this while I had Curtis and Ryan on. I should have done
talking.
this. I'm such a stone. All right, so 16:01, D.D. Westbrook goes to Elliot Chris, followed by Phillip Rivers to Gary Allen. Lynn Bowden to Davis Maddock, and then Chris Birchby takes to Sean Jackson. That's a nice little pickup there in the 16th. Brian Hill after that to Mike Scope, Tyrell Williams, and then Steven Sims, back-to-back receivers there to Lively and Seeley. Teddy Bridgewater backing up Deshaun Watson for Theo Greminger. James Washington, Michael Pittman right after that to Patrick and McDowell, and then Aberle rounding out things here in the 16th round, Tyrod Taylor, and then Reggie Bonifant.
Nice job taking Bonifant at the 16-12 instead of farting around and trying to wait until the late 18th round by Hubbard to back him up with McCaffrey.
There's some talk that he may not be the backup.
Yeah. I don't buy it.
Okay, you think it is Bonifant? You know what's funny about that? Speaking of Carrington in my Dynasty League, I have to cut so many people, and I don't own McCaffrey in that league. I think I'm going to be cutting Bonifant, just because there's no reason for me to
your team is so good. Why not?
You said it, not me. 17:01, Brian Edwards, rookie to David Hubbard there. John Ross to Mike Tagliere. Tua Tagovailoa is the third quarterback drafted by Jason Aberle. Will Dissly, the third tight end to Patrick and McDowell. Raekwell Armstead to Theo Greminger, followed by Rendell Cobb to Jake Seeley. Sam Darnold to Ross Lively. Adam Troutman to Mike Scope. God, I am going to get his name right one of these times. Mike Scope takes Adam Troutman as his number 3 tight end. Derek Carr, number 3 quarterback to Chris Birchby, followed by a trio of receivers. Jalen Hurd, Alshon Jeffrey, Larry Fitzgerald to Maddock, Allen, and Chris. We haven't talked about Jalen Hurd. You like Jalen Hurd in redraft formats this year, given the injury to Deebo Samuel? Or are you staying away from him just given he kind of lost his rookie season and he's kind of playing from behind again?
He's an interesting dart throw, but you're actually really aiming for like a 777 when you're talking about a dart throw. He's a tough one. He's a super talented running back when he was in college, and he switched to wide receiver to have a longer NFL career. I do like Jalen Hurts' talent quite a bit. He has to deal with Brandon Ayuk now, right?
Yep.
Ayuk, whatever.
Kendrick Bourne, who I like, who I know you don't.
Yeah, so and then they always talk about using him in all these versatile ways. He can actually run the ball. He can play running back if he needs to. I think he's worth a shot. 17th round, why not? I mean, I probably would have gone with Fitz and or Corey Davis and the players that went right after him instead. But that's all right. I mean, I can see the argument for Hurd.
All right, so Corey Davis is going to lead off the 18th and final round here tonight. He goes to Elliot Chris, Tyler Eifert to Gary Allen, Benny Snell off the board to Davis Maddock, Chris Thompson, pass-catching running back for Jacksonville to Chris Birchby, Dwayne Haskins backing up Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford for Mike Scope, Jalen Richard right after that to Ross Lively, Antonio Gandy Golden, receiver to the Athletics, Jake Seeley. The final tight end chosen of the draft, it's David Njoku. He's also the final non-receiver drafted, as the last 4 picks are all wideouts. You heard the Cole Beasley pick to RotoViz and Dynasty League Football there, Patrick and McDowell. Devin Duvernay, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Josh Reynolds wraps it all up with David Hubbard's final selection of Mr. Irrelevant.
All right,
okay.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you tomorrow night.
So do you want to go through these quickly?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I don't want to put you out here. All right, so let's go through David Hubbard's team first. Quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz. Running backs, Christian McCaffrey, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, Jerick McKinnon, Reggie Bonifant. Wide receivers, Mike Evans, Will Fuller, Tyler Boyd, Mecole Hardman, Brashad Perriman, Brandon Ayuk, Brian Edwards, and Josh Reynolds. Tight ends, Darren Waller and Blake Jarwin, Dave. So you look at this, and obviously the quarterbacks are good. Hubbard went out of his way, to me, to lock up the Carolina and San Francisco backfields, peppering in Matt Breida in there for S's and giggles, as it were, as the only non-Niner, non-Panther running back on his team. You see a good mix of big play and unknown receivers there, hoping to hit home on that. Tight end is a little weak. I'm not a big Waller guy this year, as anybody who knows, who has seen the Fantasy Underground World Famous Draft Guide, Player Profiler. That's who I talked about in there, why I'm not high on Darren Waller.
Oh, thanks for just talking about it only there and not here. That's great.
I've talked about it here, too, although you don't get the video form here where you do my video cameo there.
Unfortunately, I do get the video.
Very funny. I think he's light at tight end, but this is the only quarrel I have with this team.
Yeah, I kind of like how Hubbard put it together. It's one of those teams that's going to it's either going to win or it's going to take like 9th to 12th, and that's fine. Actually, that's exactly what you want.
I want to get to Team 2 here, but let's go out to the 716 real quick and take a phone call here. You are on the air with Dave and Balky here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Who's this?
Dave and Balky. This is Mike Shope. I drafted 8th.
Hey, Mike, it is so good to hear from you.
Hey, at least he knows how to pronounce his own name.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so terrible at it. It's a work in progress, Mike. I sincerely apologize.
We should have a real radio host now.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is the worst.
So, Mike, are you going to be peppering? Are you going to be praising your team and talking about how awesome it is to the end reaches of all Buffalo tomorrow? Talking about how you just dominated all these pros and Joes. How do you think it turned out for you?
To answer your question, definitely not. I will not be doing that because this is an elite group. But it could have gone worse for me, I think. I mean, how many times in these drafts do you really feel like you did badly, though? Last week, for an article at our website, WGR550.com, I tried to do badly. Every time it was my pick, I thought, well, what would be the wrong move right here? And at the end of it, I looked at it and thought, most people would probably be okay here. And so I think it's hard, or you tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think it's hard to, at the end of a draft, look at it and think that it just was a disaster. I mean, it's good players. And nobody's drafting who? Stephon Diggs first overall. I mean, this is not that kind of group. Nobody's doing anything crazy. So I'm happy, but it'll come down to, mostly luck. I mean, a lot of other factors, but I'm hopeful. How about that? I'm hopeful.
Hopeful is a good way of looking at it. It's maybe the best of things, to quote Andy Dufresne from The Shawshank Redemption. I want to ask you, Mike, so when you knew you were picking 8th here, did you sort of plan on okay, well, maybe I'll start off with a pair of high-volume wide receivers and then kind of cobble my running back core after that? Was that something that entered your mind as this is the strategy you're going to take, or did the board just fall that way for you?
It was really the latter. I thought, I think in most of these, starting receiver is dangerous because, as everybody knows, the running back thing drops off pretty fast. But I thought Devontae Adams was worthy at 1.8, and then I thought maybe Jacobs would come to me in round 2, or even maybe Drake. I had a little bit of a thought to Drake at 1.08, but then I thought I'll take my chances the other way. And then Julio Jones, without those two guys available, Julio Jones to me was a home run. So after that, it was trying to figure out how to get running back right. And then maybe I forced it. What do you guys think? I might have forced it on Ronald Jones, but I thought there was a big drop-off after him. And I was relieved later on to get the 3 running backs in 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I don't think you forced it. I would have much rather, to get that 3rd running back there in the 5th round in a format like this. I think that's something that I would be trying to do.
You have 3 starting backs, and then you picked up Howard in the 10th. I thought that was a really nice pick.
We were talking. Yeah, Dave really liked that pick. I thought that was solid too, to get a starting running back in the 10th round. It's hard to turn that down. Mike, knowing what you know now, seeing how this board turned out, do you feel like you waited too long on tight end, or are you a Hawkinson guy this year that you're happy he's leading the way for you at that position?
Maybe both. Last night, am I right? Last night was heavier on tight end early. I know Sigmund took 2 in the first 3 rounds, and I think, last night that there was more of a push at tight end, but it goes like that sometimes. And when it came to round 7 and 8, Hawkinson was the one I wanted. This is a 8th overall pick in the draft last year. Tight ends usually struggle right away, or they need their time, and the quarterback was hurt. So I think in a league like this where it's kind of like first place or nothing, Hawkinson has a chance to be great there. So of the 5 or 6 or 7 guys picked in those rounds, he was my favorite.
I like it. I like it quite a bit. Mike, listen, it was a treat having you on for sure. We're obviously all going to listen to you at WGR 550 Sports Talk Radio in Buffalo. Of course, we listen to that online, no question. And then we follow
on Spreaker and 12 other stupid formats.
No question. Obviously, yes. No, Mike is he knows what's going on with that. So
WGR Buffalo, right?
Yes, exactly. And of course, we follow you on Twitter at Shope Talk, SCHOPPTALK. Your maiden voyage into Pros versus Joes is complete. Congratulations on a very well put together team. Don't be a stranger. We'll talk to you again real soon. Enjoy your evening and enjoy the rest of the drafting season, man.
I would love that. It's been an honor. Thanks for having me, and good luck to you guys this year.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Mike.
We appreciate that. That is Mike Shope, ladies and gentlemen, from WGR Buffalo Radio. Certainly appreciate him joining Pros versus Joes this year.
I like Mike. He should be in every. He's like a gated in player for going forward.
I
future seasons for sure he's in.
I have no problem with that whatsoever. No question. All right, so should we get to Mike Tagliare's team here from Fantasy Pros at the 2 spot?
Sure.
Dak Prescott, Gardner Minshew, Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead, and then I have something to say about that team.
Okay, so Prescott, Minshew, and Tyrod Taylor are the signal callers. Running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, David Montgomery, Latavius Murray, Damian Harris. Receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyler Lockett, A.J. Green, Sterling Shepard, Anthony Miller, John Ross, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Jonnu Smith, Eric Ebron, and Greg Olsen are the tight ends. I'm not a huge fan of the tight ends, Dave. And I'll say this for the rest of the team. I don't necessarily dislike the running back core and the wide receiver core, but he went out and got his guys, didn't grab a whole lot of value. But if he's right, and by the way, Mike Tagliere does this for a living, projecting guys, so he knows what's going on with these players. I don't think it was the players I necessarily would have taken, but I think this is a competitive team. Go ahead. What were you going to say about it?
Well, okay, this isn't specific to Mike, but it is, so this is a loaded question. Out of all the running backs taken in the first round, which one are the least likely to miss games due to COVID-19?
Ezekiel Elliott.
That is correct.
Right,
you are correct.
Yeah.
He's got the antibodies.
Unless he can get it again.
Oh, let's not talk about that. I'm just kidding. So all right, that's one possible reason for taking Elliott a little bit earlier. I know there's whatever this stuff's going on.
Well, what's interesting, when Curtis Patrick was on, he was saying that he had Tagliere had Alvin Kamara as his number 2 running back this year. But he said, wait for Pros versus Joes tonight. I might have something special. Well, This is the something special. He doesn't even take Barkley. Yeah. He takes Ezekiel Elliott there. God, this number 2 pick is so – it's going to be fun seeing what happens tomorrow for it. Yeah. In any event, what do you think of his team?
I think I like his team a little bit better than you do. I mean, Juju, Lockett, A.J. Green, Shepard, not a gargantuan fan. Anthony Miller, same deal. MVS,
Ugh.
Yeah, I know, right.
But I mean, it's 18th round, so who cares?
Right, who cares? Tight ends, not guys I love.
I don't like the tight end.
But again, he's got a shot. It's tough to really rip on it. Dak's great, and then Minshew and Taylor. Damian Harris, I thought the 15th round was a really nice
I like
pick.
that pick. And I alluded to this after his second round pick. I said if Edwards-Helaire ends up coming out like gangbusters this year, he could have 2 top 5 running backs, and that might be enough to carry him to the 2021 FFPC main event for free. The Godfather, Jason Aberle, picking 3rd tonight, Lamar Jackson and Tua Tagovailoa. Then you have the running backs, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, Chase Edmonds, Devontae Freeman. Receivers, DK Metcalf, Marquise Brown, Jarvis Landry, Mike Williams, Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman, Devin Duvernay. Tight ends, Noah Fant, Dallas Goedert, Gerald Everett. Oh, I forgot Aaron Rodgers, also at quarterback on this team as well. Don't tell Aaron Rodgers. I don't want him mad at me.
Don't worry, he would be.
Yeah, I know he would be. It's just funny, sad, and true.
Friggin' prima donna.
Yeah. So anyway, he just blocked me on Twitter. It just happened right now. Okay.
He's just frowning at you on a Bergstrom billboard.
The running backs are not necessarily deep. After the top 3 receivers, I can't really find. I mean, Duvernay in the 18th, okay. I like the tight ends though. I don't know if the running backs and receivers the depth is strong enough here.
You know what? The thing is, what you kind of are omitting, and I'm not saying you're omitting it totally, but you're forgetting Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
So when you calculate that in, this is a pretty strong team actually. I actually like this team.
Arguably the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, if he scores what he scored anywhere near last year, you got Barkley, Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt. If those guys score anything like they did last year, then Metcalf, Brown, Landry, I think Mike Williams. I think he's fine. Pick. I know you don't. I mean,
Tyrod Taylor. Come on.
I mean, fine, but I mean, you have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and then Hunter Henry. I mean, maybe Tyrod actually throws for 3,200 yards.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Listen.
I'm just kidding.
You could be right. I'm fine with fading Mike Williams this year.
I kind of like Godfather's team.
Okay. Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell, we actually talked to these guys just a short moment ago. Let's get into this. Kyler Murray and Drew Brees are the quarterbacks. Alvin Kamara, Tariq Cohen, Kerryon Johnson, Zach Moss, Antonio Gibson, Joshua Kelly at running back. DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Michael Gallup, Alan Lazard, James Washington, and Cole Beasley at receiver. Mark Andrews, Ian Thomas, and Will Dissly at tight end. Top to bottom, I think this is solid. What this team depends on, Dave, for success is getting a little lucky with those running backs and the fact that they drafted 5 of them between rounds 8 and 14. They might have luck on their side. I like the receivers. I think the tight ends are good as long as Andrews, again, stays healthy. And then you have Kyler Murray and Drew Brees at quarterback. What's not to love?
Yeah, it's kind of like a high-leverage team where the receivers are really good. Kamara's good. Andrews great. Murray great. They just need the RB2 to kind of produce and come around. So we'll see what happens. I think it's not a bad roster construction the way they did it.
New to the FFPC this year, and obviously new to Pros vs. Joes, was Theo Greminger at the 5 spot. Here's how his team turned out. Deshaun Watson and Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Alexander Madison, Naheem Hines, and Raquel Armstead at running back. Receivers are Robert Woods, Stephon Diggs, Marvin Jones, Henry Ruggs, N'Keal Harry, Hunter Renfrow, and Robbie Anderson. Tight ends are Zach Ertz, Chris Herndon, and David Njoku. Dave, I really like this team. I think
you do too.
He did it. I think he did a really good job. Now the question is, okay, so Woods, Diggs, I'm on board with as the top 2 receivers. Then he needs
Marvin Jones was equivalent to Galladay at points last year.
So here's the thing with Marvin Jones. You have always been more of a fan of his than I have, yet I feel like I own him in more leagues than you do.
Tell me one for tell it to me.
Well, I'll have to find a league that we're both in where I own Marvin Jones. But that's the thing, and he could be fine. In fact, he might be a fine number 3 receiver this year, and whatever. But after that, Ruggs, Harry, Renfrow, Anderson, one of those guys needs to hit.
I love it, though. I mean, those are all solid picks.
They all have a lot of upside, which is what you need.
Yeah, all in different ways, right? All of them are actually – I actually like this team quite – I think he did super well.
Ertz, Herndon, and Njoku, love it. And then the running backs, Cook, Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, and Perry Madison.
Yeah.
Mwah. Perfect.
I feel like even like in Njoku in the 18th round, that was like a really cool, good pick.
I think this is the second straight PBJ we've had Njoku in the last round.
Yeah, and we're not even trying to like butter him up. I mean, what do we care? He's a rookie. He may not even ever play again.
Jake Seeley from the Athletic here, Dave. Matt Ryan and Daniel Jones at quarterback. The running backs are Nick Chubb, Mark Ingram, Darius Geis, Darrell Henderson, Anthony McFarland, and Darrington Evans. Wide receivers, Michael Thomas, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen, Deebo Samuel, Preston Williams, Steven Sims, Randall Cobb, Antonio Gandy Golden. And then he goes with just 2 tight ends, Hayden Hurst, Rob Gronkowski. They're pretty good ones. I mean, he gets them in the 7th and 8th. You look at the receiver depth, it's pretty awesome. I mean, you could talk about his maybe having the deepest receivers in this league with Deebo Samuel as his number 4, Preston Williams as his number 5. I know you like Sims. I kind of like Cobb, too.
And then he takes Sims with Gandy Golden. So
right, exactly.
Like locking up the crappy part of that receiving core.
Chubb, Ingram, Geis. Not my favorite trio at running backs, but when you consider the rest of his team, I think he did a pretty nice job here.
Yeah, I think so, too. I agree with most of what you had to say.
Let's go on to Ross Lively here and look at his team, the 2018 Football Guys champ. Jared Goff, Cam Newton, Sam Darnold are his quarterbacks. Running backs, Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette, Devin Singletary, Duke Johnson, Carlos Hyde, and Jalen Richard. Receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp, Julian Edelman, Deontay Johnson, Golden Tate, Tyrell Williams. Tight ends, Hunter Henry, Jay Sternberger, and Dawson Knox. All right, so as I'm trying to pick this apart here.
And you're never a problem.
And I am. I think
Hunter Henry's a nice value in the 6th.
Another deep team here. He didn't get Zach Moss to go with Singletary. I don't know how important that is when Singletary is only his number 3 running back. I like the receivers. Hopkins, Kupp, Edelman, Johnson.
Lots of veterans, too. Because
Peyton
Hopkins,
Williams, late.
Hopkins, Kupp, Edelman, Tate, Tyrell Williams. Lots of veterans.
And look what he did, too. You know what? I'm on board with this team, and I'll tell you why. Ignore the first 3 running backs. Look at the last 3. Duke Johnson, pass catcher. Carlos Hyde, backing up a guy who's oft injured, and Chris Carson. Jalen Richard, last round, pass catcher. Yep. This is a really, really good team. This might be one of the best teams in the league, too. I feel like I've been saying that with a lot of these teams, but we knew it was going to be a bloodbath, and instead of nobody coming up with a good team, everybody came up with a good team.
Yeah, it's very good roster construction overall. The running backs are really, solid. I mean, everything's pretty solid on this team. I think it's well done, well put together.
All right, so we just talked to Mike Shope. We're going to talk about his team right now. Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, and Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. Le'Veon Bell, Chris Carson, Ronald Jones, Jordan Howard, A.J. Dillon, and Brian Hill at running back. Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Devontae Parker, Darius Slayton, Jerry Jeudy, Curtis Samuel at receiver. Tight ends are T.J. Hawkinson, O.J. Howard, and Adam Troutman. Dave, as I look at this team, I think if the tight ends can stay afloat, which might be asking a lot. I know he likes Hawkinson. We'll see about Howard. I have limited expectations for Adam Troutman, but if the tight ends can keep him alive, this team is going to be competitive as well. It's all going to depend upon those tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, he must have Hawkinson break out and be awesome. And if he does, he's competitive. If he doesn't, he has problems. Troutman, the problem with him is I just always think of Rambo or First Blood. You know, Troutman is Rambo's station chief or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I can't get past the name. Sorry.
Okay.
Colonel Troutman.
Goes back to the Giovanni Weird-Ass Bernard analysis that we had.
Colonel Troutman.
Several years ago. Chris Birchby.
I sure hope that's actually the correct name.
I'm sure it is. Chris Birchby drafting in the 9 spot tonight. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Derek Carr as his quarterbacks, as running backs. Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Melvin Gordon, J.K. Dobbins, Sony Michel, Chris Thompson. Receivers, Keenan Allen, Brandon Cook, CeeDee Lamb, John Brown, Sammy Watkins, Antonio Brown, Deshaun Jackson. Tight ends are Travis Kelce and Tyler Higbee. I think the story that we talked about, is it Troutman? It is Troutman?
Yeah.
All right.
Colonel Sam Troutman.
So we talked about this. One of the storylines from this draft was how does Birchby put together enough receivers? I think he did a good job. I am not a fan of the Antonio Brown pick, but all the other ones, I mean, Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, to get those guys late, those veterans late, that's really going to help his team. His running backs are great. I think his tight ends to stop after Kelce and Higbee, I think that was a solid decision. And to get that third quarterback to pair with Allen and Burrow was a good job getting Derek Carr. So I like that.
I like Birchby's team overall. I think he did a really fine job. His running backs are fantastic. Tight end's great. Josh Allen, I mean, getting him in the 9th round like that was pretty solid. And taking a shot at Joe Burrow is good, too. I mean, I think he has an overall really good team.
Davis Maddock takes Jimmy Garoppolo and Kirk Cousins as his quarterbacks. He goes Miles Sanders, Cam Akers, Damian Williams, Keshawn Vaughn, Tony Pollard, Lynn Bowden, and Benny Snell as his running backs. Receivers, Amari Cooper, A.J. Brown, DJ Chark, Christian Kirk, Jalen Reagor, Laviska Shenault, Jalen Hurd. Tight ends are George Kittle and Irv Smith. Maybe the most upside of anybody in this draft so far as combined. But, Dave, maybe the most question marks, too, with the rookies. You look at what he did after Miles Sanders. It's a lot of question marks at running back, but, with a lot of upside. And then you look at only taking 2 tight ends, only taking 2 quarterbacks, especially when you wait until round 13. I don't know if that'll pay off. So while I could see this team being very successful, there's a lot of wild cards on this roster that makes it difficult to pin down.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Garoppolo and Cousins, I think it's a little bit because quarterbacks were so cheap. I feel like he gave away the value that was just gifted to him because people were letting quarterbacks go for so long that you don't have to wait till the 13th round to take Garoppolo. You get to take somebody else just a teensy bit earlier.
Gary Allen, the 2015 FFPC main event champ, takes Tom Brady, Ryan Tannehill, and Phillip Rivers as his quarterbacks. Running backs are Kenyon Drake, David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, James White, and Justin Jackson. Receivers, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, T.Y. Hilton, Emmanuel Sanders, Justin Jefferson, Denzel Mims, and Alshon Jeffrey. Tight ends, Evan Ingram, Jack Doyle, and Tyler Eifert. Kind of a unsexy team, Dave, with all these veterans here. I guess for me, he's going to need White to patch up some holes. He might need Lindsey to get a Gordon injury so he can get a couple of startable weeks here. But then you look late, and it's a couple of rookie receivers. It's Alshon Jeffrey. It's Justin Jackson who needs some help to become fantasy relevant. I don't know if this is the way that I would have drafted my team from that. But you can't really – I mean, you look at the top 4 picks, Drake, Godwin, Golladay, Johnson. There's a lot of fantasy goodness there.
Yeah, there's a few players I felt like were – maybe he should be – no offense, but I think he should be checking the ADP a little bit better. I mean, Lindsey was early. Denzel Mims was probably 5 rounds early. So I feel like some of those picks were just like they could have been made later, and he could have grabbed somebody else and still gotten the players that he liked.
Final team we're going to look at tonight from Fade the Noise, it is Elliot Chris. He takes Baker Mayfield, Ben Roethlisberger, and Drew Lock as his quarterbacks. His running backs are Joe Mixon, Todd Gurley, DeAndre Swift, Marlon Mack, Boston Scott. Receivers, Tyreek Hill, Odell Beckham, Cortland Sutton, Jamison Crowder, Dede Westbrook, Larry Fitzgerald, Corey Davis. Tight ends, Jared Cook, Mike Gesicki, and Austin Hooper. So when you take those 3 straight tight ends there, Dave, which I like, that trio is great, but then you're looking at Marlon Mack and Boston Scott as your number 4 and 5 running backs. He waits until round 16 to kind of patch up that receiver core with Westbrook, Fitzgerald, Davis. I mean, you could do a lot worse than that. I think he did a solid job with his last 3 picks. And I have no problem with the waiting on the quarterback until round 13 to get Mayfield, Roethlisberger, and Locke, too. Certainly a competitive team here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he picked off value with Todd Gurley. I still feel like Gurley going to the 4th round is it's kind of ridiculous. I just think that's when you have that offense being that good. So by getting those top 6 picks, you can kind of mess around a little bit with the other stuff. So it's a good team overall. Dede, Fitz, Corey Davis, kind of garbage late, but that garbage could actually pay off.
Yeah, I mean, they only need to pay off a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Maybe,
And Jamison Crowder's a solid pick, too, I thought, in the 10th round there?
That was a 10th round pick. Yeah, nice job by Elliot Chris there from FadeTheNoise.com.
And nice job by everybody.
Yeah, great job. This was a fun draft. I knew it was going to be fun with all the talent in this draft and all the accomplishments from both the pros and Joes. This was fun. I want to thank our guests tonight, Curtis Patrick, Ryan McDowell, and, of course, Mike Schopp for popping in and chiming in with us. I want to thank Darren Armani, the FFPC, Dave Gerzak, our producer and mutual friend Rob, our audio engineer, and my best friend Bryce. Most of all of our listeners. Tomorrow night, we do it again. What? Oh, do we got a draft? Football guys draft?
Yeah, 6 left in the football guys tonight.
What time does that start?
11:55 Eastern.
All right,
1 hour and 5 minutes from now.
Yeah, so you're looking at 65 minutes from now if you want to take a chance at a $500,000 for a $350 entry fee. MyFFPC.com. League's half full. Make it full here tonight and jump in that. That will be fun. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we are back at it with the 2020 FFPC Pros versus Joes Thin Lizzy, League number 3. We're going to be on an hour later. It's 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, and we'll be right here on blogtalkradio.com as well as having the live feed up at youtube.com/highstakesfantasyfootball. Tomorrow night's Joes, Kevin Proctor, Eric Rubin, Mark Davidson, and Jacob Rotter, Glenn Lowy, Matthew Jacobson, and Scott Kobe all going to be participating. As far as the pros go, Draft Sharks, Jared Smola, Fighting Chance Fantasies, Brian Drake, and Pro Football Focus, Dwayne McFarland. Football guys, the rocket scientist, David Dodds will be drafting. Sharp Football Analysis, Rich Rebar will be on. Brad Evans from Fade the Noise, and, of course, Josh Hornsby from Roto Grinders, all participating on the program tomorrow. Can't wait for that one, ladies and gentlemen. It will be fun. Remember to get your draft slot early for the FFPC main event. You have basically a little over 4 hours to take care of that. To make sure that you are getting your draft slot by August 2nd, make sure you are registering and paying for your team in full at myffpc.com. Planet Hollywood reservations, flights, make sure you're taking care of them. We'll be out in Vegas in a little over, a little less than a month and a half. Don't forget, Satellites Dynasty and the Football Guys Players Championship, all at myffpc.com. Your week continues
This
now.
has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I don't think I said this during the broadcast tonight. We ushered in a new computer, a new PC.
Is it a non-Dell?
It is an Asus, I want to say.
Oh, yeah, that's better than Dell.
I wouldn't know. I'm not an expert on this. But the previous computer has handled the YouTube live stream for just about every Pros versus Joes draft that you and I have ever done.
Oh, how sad.
And so we're moving on to bigger and better things, and hopefully we're set for the next decade with this bad boy. I didn't buy it. No, this is my wife's computer, actually. I was looking all over because I got laptops, but none of them work.
We can buy you a new computer. You know they're pretty cheap nowadays.
I know. Well, why buy one when I said, I'm like, oh, okay, so I'll bring this home from the studio. She's like, don't worry about it. So apparently she doesn't even need it. Maybe I'll just make this a new computer for me.
No, good.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you.
By the way, I'm gonna badger David Dodds to call in tomorrow.
You usually do, and he rarely does. I don't know if that's the right approach.
I'm emailing right now.
All right, you do that, and we'll talk to everybody else at 10/9 Central tomorrow with a getting ready for our angry phone call from Football Guys co-founder David Dodge.
Dodge, you suck.